Oh,
Yeah.
hey listeners, what's good? Shan just chilling here in my favorite sweater.
You wear that sweater a lot.
Yes, I'd like to say that it's also utility. It's pure polyester, so it's the warmest thing I own. And we don't use our heat,
Oh.
so I'm absolutely freezing. But I mean, it also just makes me happy. It reminds me
Sure.
of that 70s show.
Okay.
My favorite
So you're in
television show.
costume.
I am in costume. I'm Hot Donna.
There you go.
Hot Donna, not just
Good
Donna.
for you. No.
Steven's
I've
like,
actually
"Good
never,
for
I've
you."
literally never seen that show. So,
You know, I don't think it's your vibe. I just don't.
no, but I do remember there was a show on MTV called The 70s House. Do you remember that?
I loved that show. Yes.
It was so good.
That was so fun.
They should just run that show every day on a loop.
They had to
because-
hustle whenever the song came on.
Okay, yes. They lived in a house and everyone had to pretend like it was the 1970s. And you're right. One of the key rules was that whenever they played the hustle over the loudspeakers, everyone had to stop what they were doing and do the hustle. And if they didn't, they were removed from the game.
I think that was the pinnacle for me. Like, I remember last week you were like, I hope I get mature enough one day to where fear is no longer a factor and I can go on Fear Factor. I really think I thought I was going to be on the 70s House. Like, that show was going to be running into the future.
Yeah. I mean,
I was going to go on.
We were young at that time. So I think when you see shows when you're younger, you just think, oh, this is television. I'm going to watch this show forever.
Forever. That's what I thought. I thought I was going to be on forever.
Even when they woke them up at 3 a.m. to do the hustle. I remember one person was eliminated because they played the hustle at like 3 a.m. and he didn't get up.
I just remember thinking the house looked like a movie set, which I love.
That's
the
right.
costumes were so cool.
Right.
And I was like, I can get over my embarrassment at dancing. Like, just get up and do it.
And they would do things like, okay, if you want to avoid going home, you have to win a game of Jenga. And I was like, okay, these are things that I could do.
Yeah, these are things I do already. This is my life. This is my morning routine.
Like, I would have some control of my destiny in the 70s house. And I liked that.
That's how I felt. I felt that.
Yeah, I felt in control.
Mm-hmm. My fall from grace with reality TV was pretty hard because, like, you stayed with it.
Yeah.
But I watched all this early VH1, Girls Next Door.
Girls Next Door is so
House,
good.
Surreal Life.
Surreal Life. Surreal Life is really hard to watch, I found.
It's so cringy now. It's really tough.
Girls Next Door has gotten better with age, honestly. I just did a rewatch of the whole series, and it's actually better now than it was then, if you can believe it.
If you can believe it, folks. Bet you can.
I always wanted to be Bridget growing up.
Yeah, I wanted to be Bridget too. She was like the girliest one. Or Kendra because she was sporty. Never Holly.
But now I want to be Holly.
You see?
Look how times have changed. I definitely don't want to be Kendra. I can tell you that pretty.
No, I loved Kendra.
No.
I'm obsessed with the fact that, okay, so our Star Vehicle podcast YouTube, interface, the algorithm is like set to Girls Next Door.
Oh, really?
Because there are like clips when I log into that one. I'm like, wait, why am I getting this on my For You?
Well, it's funny though because I realized that I never log out of our YouTube account, so all of my personal viewing is readily available for you.
Yes,
so you
and
can definitely check my history and see what kind of vids I'm watching.
I know, it's good. It's real good.
It's either like this scene from The Girls Next Door or the Girls Next Door title card. I love watching that.
I love it. And I would be mortified. Sometimes, like, I'm in the middle of watching a video and I need to do something for the pod and I'll hit switch account. And then the video I was just currently watching will switch to the Star Vehicle account. And I'm like, oh God, no. And then I have to, like, click off of it.
Yeah, because I'm currently watching this woman as she renovates a home that she bought in Tuscany. And I'm really in... Yeah, it's just like that. And it's one of those things where I don't mind if you were to see that I'm watching it, but it's also something that I think is more special if I keep it private.
Yeah, it's for me.
It's really just for me.
It's for me.
That's right.
I'm with you there. Okay, I wanted to... Now this doesn't feel natural.
Okay. Well,
we can cut it. Guys, this week I've been really nervous that I'm forgetful. Like, I've been really self-conscious about this. And I was like, I'm not forgetful. That's no way. Like, I would never put that on myself. And then I sent a package meant for one of our friends in Brooklyn to you in Brooklyn.
Wrong address.
Wrong address. Put it in.
Which, like, the level of
confidence,
mental gymnastics it would take to do that to me is so confusing. Like, you had to put the right name.
Yes.
And the wrong address.
Yes.
But the address was right for someone else.
For you. I just think this is
and what's really funny is that on the shipping label,
what did it
there's
say?
no unit number. You just shipped it to the building.
No,
as if it was a gift.
I put unit number. There was a unit on my
Okay, it didn't come up with
email.
the unit number. It just says the building address. So, which is just really funny, as if you're sending the building a gift.
I just remember as I'm typing it in going, make sure that this is, we can say our name. I'm like, make sure this is for Kara. And I was like, I like double checked and made like a mental note, and I still put in your address in Brooklyn.
Wild.
So I'm going to have to retest my thesis statement that I'm not forgetful.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I put that on you this week. I gave you.
That reminds me of the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life.
Which is?
Still Alice.
Oh, very scary.
So scary.
I was waiting for like more of a punchline, but no, that's scary.
It. So terrifying.
Because I like to call Under the Tuscan Sun, which we've just mentioned, a little bit of a thriller.
Oh, it has jump scares.
Yeah, there are jump scares.
If you're not, and if you're sitting there being like, oh no, there's not. Okay, turn off all your lights and watch the movie by yourself, and tell me you don't. And tell me you don't have a little bit of a spook.
A little scream.
A little scream.
Yeah, I'm obsessed. I love watching Under the Tuscan Sun with you and our friends because there are jump scares.
There are jump scares. That movie truly is everything. It's my favorite movie of all time.
It's the best movie ever. Maybe we'll watch it as like a reward or something. 10,000 on TikTok.
Yeah, we're almost there.
We're almost there.
We just need to get to 1,000 first, and then times 10.
9,000 something to go. 9,150 to go.
That's right.
I think we can get there. Those algorithms are in our favor. But okay. I
gotta play the game.
Believe we watched the movie that we're covering today. I'm kind of shocked.
Yeah.
Gigli. From the
Gigli,
year 2003.
Correct. And this is one of those movies I truly thought I was going to go throughout my life and comfortably never see it.
Yep. Same.
And
felt the same.
It's weird to be confronted with a movie that has been described as the worst movie of all time. I think that it's hard to open yourself up to an experience like that.
Yeah, agree. I had a hard time. I was very shut off to this movie. I had a brick wall up.
I was extremely shut off to this movie until the first scene. And then I thought, okay, let's do this.
Oh, I didn't come around for a long time. It took me a while to come around.
It didn't take me that long because it was not at all what I thought it was going to be. And I mean, just to think about the confidence that I had going through life, thinking that I knew what this movie was about. Mm-hmm. And then to watch it and to find out that it's nothing
like what I thought.
Like if you would have said last week, write down what you think the plot is of this movie, I would have said no. We should start doing
that, by the way.
I would have said no problem. I
actually would have been able to even come up with a sentence. Or, okay, there was a point in this movie where I thought we were watching Enough. I conflated the two.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. I really did conflate the two for like a hot sec.
Well, let me revise what I said. What I would have felt comfortable doing a week ago is probably just saying it's a romantic comedy between Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck. And the route that they take from not knowing each other to falling in love will be pretty conventional.
Yes.
And that's probably
romantic
what I would...
Romantic comedy convention.
Right. Romantic comedy light, nothing interesting here. And probably the flaw is that you just have two really hot people doing a really boring movie, and that's the beginning, middle, and end of the story.
Yeah, agree. And I knew they were going to have more chemistry than what we'd seen in the past with J-Lo love interests because they were together in real life. So I was just like...
these are real life lovers.
Yeah, so there's something a little bit like eavesdroppy about it.
Yeah, something fun.
This movie was shocking.
It was shocking because Okay, so why don't you
I'll read
read
the
us
summary,
and then we can just start to find any ins and outs that we can get into this movie.
we can start to build a working thesis.
Oh yeah,
the film.
I'll tell you. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm excited. Okay.
Okay.
Gigli, Ben Affleck, is ordered to kidnap the intellectually disabled younger brother of a powerful federal prosecutor. When plans go awry, Gigli's boss sends in Ricky, played by Jennifer Lopez, a gorgeous, free-spirited female gangster who has her own set of orders to assist with the kidnapping. But Gigli begins falling for the decidedly unavailable Ricky, which could be a hazard to his occupation.
Okay, now
I love
just
that summary
hearing
has no
that-
spoiler, by the way.
True. Now, even hearing that on paper, I actually think to myself, that's an interesting plot. Now, we will obviously, I don't think we need to spend too much time on saying this, but like, obviously there are like a million problems and one with their depiction of the intellectually disabled character. And it's so problematic and disgusting in so many ways. But it's like, that is what is in the movie. And there's nothing, you can't change it.
It's committed to celluloid.
But what I think, like, if they would have just had them kidnap a federal prosecutor's child and have the kidnapping go awry, that to me is an interesting story.
Yep.
And and the characters are interesting in and of themselves. So on its surface, I think this is an interesting movie. And I will say though that when the movie starts with Ben Affleck talking to a washing machine. We can infer that because we're in a laundromat. And the door is open. Yeah. I just remember thinking to myself, okay, like we are not in the world of reality. Like this is the world of art. And
art. And I was like, gonna say we're in Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs land.
Right. Like I'm like, okay, what they're not doing here is we're not living in the real world. And I just thought to myself, like, okay, fine. Like, what if we just live in this like art world that they're trying to do?
Okay.
And run with it. And obviously there are, like I said before, 1,000,001 problems of how they deal with different marginalized communities.
Yeah.
But that aside,
multiple marginalized communities are run through Affleck's
dirty
mouth in this.
And
it's bad.
Other than that though, I really thought to myself, as I continued to watch the movie, I said, you know what? Each of these scenes could be its own mini movie.
I thought that about a bunch of them. It felt like little mini short films that I would have loved to have watched.
Right. And we get background information about all of the characters, and yet it never comes to fruition. Not that I wanted the movie to be longer. It's 2 hours.
Oh, it's
too
long.
I really thought to myself, we really needed another 2 hours because we we never really found out who Jennifer Lopez is. We didn't find out who Christopher Walken is. We didn't find out who the federal prosecutor is. We didn't find out who this guy was who was hiring them and what his motivations were.
I spent all morning Googling literally like phrases like, who is Christopher Walken in Gigli? What part does he play? Like I spent all morning.
Where's the Al Pacino extended cut? Like,
yes.
Like,
also, he scared me so much. I was so afraid at the end.
Right. And that's what I started to think is that, you know what probably happened is that they gave all these characters just their lines. And they didn't get the whole movie. And it was like, wow, Christopher Walken, look at this amazing scene that you have. Look at this very weird dialogue that you get to say. And he was probably like, oh, cool. This is probably going to be a really interesting movie. I'd love to do this. Same
they
with
only
Al
had their little
Pacino.
section.
Yeah. So that was sort of how I tried to make sense of Gigli, which rhymes with really, by the way.
Rhymes with really. I have to commend you because you always get there quicker than me. You're always just so ready to just give yourself over to the experience of the film. And I have to say, like, that's a great quality. Like, good for you.
But you know what? Can I accept your compliment and build on it for a quick second?
Yeah, do that.
Which is that I think that 5 years ago, I took myself way too seriously and would have tried to be too pretentious about this. And now I just want to be entertained. So if I'm going to sit and watch Gigli for 2 hours...
Well, it's the star vehicle. It's the point.
Yeah,
In case you were wondering what we're doing
for
here.
2 hours, I don't want to watch it and hate it. So I was like, let me try to find a way to enjoy this experience. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I had to really just like surrender to the experience. I 100% agree with you. I just want to be entertained. And I will say that probably the YouTube crowd thinks that I am like too pretentious about movies, but like I just want to have fun.
Just want to have fun.
All I want. Girls just want to have fun.
Right.
I want to Cyndi Lauper this movie.
Yeah. And this movie has a lot of feminine energy to it.
Oh, yes, it does.
It's very pro lady. And also sometimes not. Sometimes it's actually the opposite.
I was consistently flip-flopping on if this is like a movie just made for the male gaze and if it's gross, or if this was like a secretly amazingly badass, like feminist, like sexuality isn't real movie. I was like, damn. Like I came around.
I think you're right in the sense that it's actually a little bit ahead of the curve on
it seemed like it,
ideas like gender and sexuality. Because what Jennifer Lopez's character is suggesting is that she doesn't really identify with anything specifically, and that she is free to float with whoever she likes.
Exactly. People are people.
People are people. And we actually get a very similar treatment of Ben Affleck, where by the end of the movie, he is comfortable in saying that he doesn't necessarily identify as the normal,
the macho man,
the macho masculine kind of gangster character that he's trying to force himself into at the beginning. So it does this weird.
It's a real meditation.
It's a real meditation. Mm-hmm. Like that yoga class that she does midway through the movie.
Oh my God. Could have watched that forever. Could
have watched it forever.
That was my favorite short in the whole movie.
Well, that's what I'm saying. These are all like little scenes. And that's why I'm saying
I can't wait to get to that scene.
I think there was something missing though. I just think there was something missing here because
I know what happened. I did look it up.
Oh, okay. So that'll be helpful because I didn't have time to do that. Okay. So
it's an opening scene in the laundromat, and this is what I was kind of confused on the whole movie. I had to go back. He's the muscle.
It's a place where you wash your clothes. Okay.
Yeah, the place where you wash your clothes, yes. Yeah. Which I've been there a lot recently because our dryer broke in the house.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so he's the muscle, which is what I didn't understand because he is kind of playing like a big baby throughout this whole movie, Affleck.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to tell us about Affleck is that he is kind of the lowest rung in this mafia organization, and that his job is to be out and about on the streets.
Shaking people down, right?
Shaking people down,
okay.
Kind of collecting money.
Got that.
And you're right.
Wow.
But we don't really get that confirmed until we start to see the hierarchy in the mafia organization, organized crime that he's in. And again, this is where they were sort of flipping that around too, because normally in these kind of classic like mob movies, it's always top down. Like we're looking at the bosses and we're seeing them make decisions. Mm-hmm. And this movie was very bottom up, where it was like you're watching the low level people like fumble basic tasks.
Yeah.
And by the time we meet Al Pacino, we finally realize that like they were doing the dumbest things this whole movie. And it was like, it's like, actually now I understand why we would need like a structure, a top-down structure in something like organized crime, because otherwise mistakes like this would happen.
Mistakes were made.
This
was so confusing because it's like he is the muscle. He is like the guy muscle we're meant to identify with.
Sure.
You're supposed to believe he's this hitman. You're supposed to. I guess I'm supposed to believe he's killed before. Is that true?
Maybe.
Or maybe
but what
not.
the way that I read his character was that actually maybe he's never killed before.
That's what I'm saying. That's how it came across. Like he was just terrible at his job.
Because normally those low-level enforcers, the way that they move up in the ranks is they do things that no one else wants to get their hands on. Mm-hmm. And he seems super reluctant to do anything, starting from the fact that he only collects like 50% of the money from this guy. And he's
from the guy in the washing machine.
He's like, thank you.
And then he goes to his boss, expecting the boss to be psyched about it. He goes, it's all he had.
Right.
I would say that. It's kind of like making the mob accessible. I'm like, I could do that. I could get half the money.
Could get half the money.
I could get half.
I could get half, I think.
Yeah, and then Lewis is like, he's mad, but I never really feel like Ben Affleck is like about to die if he messes up that badly. But by the time we get to Pacino at the end, not only is there actual death, I'm afraid that they might die. And their performance is not indicating that at all.
No, Jennifer Lopez seems relatively unfazed.
She's so calm. She's like, I'm gonna outwit him.
They're doing this weird. Okay, here's what I actually did appreciate about this structure is that you live in this bubble where it looks like the highest ranking person is, what's his name? Lewis, you said?
Yeah, Lewis isn't even the highest guy, but yeah, he's like the guy that we're talking on the cell phone to the whole movie.
Right. But I think like since we don't meet anybody else, he's the only person in power that we see. So we're taking his instructions to carry out certain things as gospel. But then once we meet the next person, we're like, oh my God, he was such a dum-dum.
Yeah. Yep.
But when you're watching the movie for the first hour and 50 minutes, you don't think to yourself, oh my God, Lewis is a dum-dum. You think that like these are just normal activities.
You're like, that's a good plan. Because like, okay, we can move on. Like, so his objective is to kidnap an intellectually disabled younger brother, which we've talked about. He didn't need to be, but for the plot of this movie, he was.
Right.
Affleck just waltzes in to his home and plucks him, no problem, out.
Yeah, it's not a really difficult kidnap.
No, it's one of the easier kidnaps I've seen on television.
Yeah, it's interesting because within the first 15 minutes, the kidnapping is over.
Yeah. Plot point 1.
It's done. And for the rest of the movie, we are just navigating the relationship between Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez.
They wanted this to be a buddy film. Like a buddy film between Affleck and Lopez and maybe a buddy film between Affleck's character and Brian.
Oh, yeah.
Played by the guy in The Hangover. And honestly,
that took me 40 minutes to realize.
I was like, I know this kid.
I knew the voice.
Also,
I couldn't place his
actor who
face.
plays intellectually disabled brother is not in real life intellectually disabled. Worth
for
noting.
sure. And that energy jumps off the screen. And it's
jumps off the screen.
But this was, again, I think what's important to remember, though, is that this is also a time, and it still didn't end here, and it certainly didn't begin here either, but where actors would take on these roles as a challenge.
Yeah, challenge.
It's so gross.
Also Lopez, with her reveal.
Yeah, shocking reveal. Yeah, it was like, let me play something that's not, quote unquote, normal, and you'll see how talented I am.
How far I can stretch.
And it's gross. But it's what is in the
gross,
movie.
But it's what happened.
And it's interesting that tidbit never, ever comes up in the discussion of why this movie is, quote unquote, so bad. It's always like, oh, it's so cringe. They're like, not in that sense, like in the sense that J-Lo and Ben Affleck are just so bad in this movie. Like, they got a Razzie for it. Yeah. And I'm like, actually,
Affleck's acting.
Them.
Well, okay, I was texting you last night because like first 13 minutes there's no J-Lo. And I was like, Affleck is so hard to watch in this. I just don't find him charismatic. I want to die. I'm like, he's not shiny to me. He's not sparkly. I think that I was likening him to, the Damon Affleck duo. I think Matt Damon is sparkly. Affleck, no. So I'm having a horrible time until minute 13.
Okay.
When J-Lo knocks on his apartment door.
Right.
And, we come to find out that she has been sent basically to like babysit him because he's terrible at his job. Right?
Right.
Ricky is sent to babysit him.
We find that out. She initially tries to like see if she can gain access to the apartment, and Ben Affleck lets her in because he's attracted to her. Mm-hmm. And then she reveals that she's been sent to double check.
And she's like, I knew you were a fuck up, but I didn't know you were this much of a fuck up.
Right. I wonder if she's playing an Italian character here too.
Maybe.
What's
Rochelle?
And like we start to, J-Lo is a mystery at the beginning, and she ends as a mystery as well. But what I thought we were going to build towards was, who is she? And where did she come from? I would imagine that in a small community of the Los Angeles mafia, you would know all the players. So
yeah,
it's
he's gonna spend the movie coming up with who she is.
But I just think we were sort of missing that final piece to find out who she was and what does she do besides being a quote unquote contractor.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote at multiple points throughout this movie, what is this movie about?
Right.
Because I just couldn't place it. It was like they kidnap this young man and then they just keep him the whole movie. And like I said, it felt like it just wanted to be a buddy comedy, but it was like a crime movie. And they're just keeping him the whole movie.
Yeah.
He's the brother of a local DA, and they were doing it to force the DA's hand to give Pacino, who we don't meet until the end, a lighter sentence.
I think what they were saying is that the DA was investigating their organization, and that if they were able to threaten him with his son, then he would stop looking into their activities. It was his brother?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, it was his brother, Brian. But it's just like I said, if I gave up on trying to figure out the crime element of it all and just surrendered to buddy film,
right,
that's when I had fun.
That's why I also like the Ben Affleck and J-Lo plot.
we're playing a lot of mental gymnastics right now.
The Ben Affleck and J-Lo plot could have been 30 minutes in a movie where there were 2 other 30-minute plots. Because nothing really happens at all
changed
from
much.
now until an hour 50. Like all that we see is just like the 3 of them
hanging out,
start to like each other.
Yeah,
and
they're in the car. They get lunch.
Yeah, they get lunch.
She threatens a bunch of boys at lunch.
She threatens a bunch of boys. She talks about how she's going to scramble their eyes with her fingers. She quotes from The Art of War. Yes, incessantly.
A lot.
She's off book too.
J-Lo knows her lines in this movie.
She's not looking at a cue card. Like she's quoting from The Art of War.
I'm obsessed with J-Lo in this. I think that she does in a movie that's supposed to be like Razzie Award nominated. I think she does a good job with this movie. She's holding her own.
Okay, and again, this is where I was wrong about Gigli, is that I thought that like one of the conceptions of this movie is that the 2 of our 2 leads took it so seriously and it was so dumb. Like I thought that was sort of the public perception.
Yeah.
But when I watched Affleck, okay, maybe there's a case that he's taking himself too seriously. When I watched J-Lo, she is not taking this seriously at all.
She knows what she's doing.
She's having fun. So I don't understand how you could watch this movie and think that Jennifer Lopez thinks that what she's doing here is the Lord's work.
Yeah, no, I think she's kind of spot on, like with what she was given. Also, what do you expect? Like
she's doing the best that she can.
Truly. Also, they both got paid $12 million for this.
Wonderful.
More than the movie raked in.
Wonderful.
Good for them.
Good for you. And by the way, I think she deserved it.
Oh yeah, of course she deserved it.
No one's going to see this movie if those 2 aren't there.
Seriously.
Most people aren't going if Jennifer Lopez isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, okay, so this might be a good time to drop that I read that the studio wanted this to be a mob film, and it was supposed to just be a plain old mob film. And the studio wanted to capitalize on their real life relationship. So they forced their hand in making this romantic between them.
Okay.
So, which makes sense.
That makes sense. And you can almost feel around an hour and a half that the movie takes on a new life, and we are now in the world where they are going to fall in love. But I would argue that, and I don't want to go against the man here, it's big studio, but the movie was way more interesting when there was no sexual tension between the 2 of them.
So much more interesting.
It was it felt fresh, like a breath of fresh when she agrees to share a bed with him and he gets so excited. Yeah. And then she promptly informs him that she is gay and that she will not be indulging him.
What a reveal. Like we said, if I guessed last week, I would have thought rom-com, Ben Affleck, J-Lo. To get the reveal that she's gay? Wow.
Wow. Again, you
Shocking.
don't hear that. You don't hear that a lot when people talk about this movie.
This is a 20-year spoiler-free movie. Like, I've never heard that.
I was shocked. And, well, I think you know why, is that by the end of the movie, it's almost like it's a different movie because they end the movie driving away, implying that they are now going to be in a relationship, and she's happy with that. And by the way, she can do that. No problem there.
She can do whatever she wants.
But there definitely was a shift. Like, it started as one movie. Mm-hmm. And when J-Lo said that she was gay, and then she immediately, without missing a beat, looks at Ben Affleck and basically goes, "And you're gay too, right?" And
she's doing this a lot all movie.
Right. I was like, okay, this again, what a breath of fresh. This is so interesting. Like, yeah, this is new. This is new.
I was writing constantly, is this a movie ahead of its time? Okay.
It could have been.
It could have been.
If they would have stuck with the initial idea, where essentially, like, what they were doing is they were taking all the components of a mob movie and turning it on its head. And I don't think it wasn't going to create, like, a Citizen Kane. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be in the AFI Top 100, but at least it would have been, maybe 101. But it should have been, if they would have stuck with their guns, at least it would have been something different.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I was consistently, like, a little bit, I was confused. I guess what I'm also trying to say is read one way in 2003. I bet it kind of reads differently now. In 2003, I think that this was the movie, any straight dude can turn a gay girl straight if he's suave enough. Like,
and that that's like the third act storyline. Which
happens. Like, it happens, and it's so gross. It's like you're not some sort of god who's going to turn a girl. Right. That was where I had, like, a huge problem. But if I'm reading this movie with, like, the most fun lens I can, I think J-Lo's just, like, a bi girl living her best life.
Right, because at a certain point in the movie, I don't even remember why, and it doesn't really matter, but J-Lo and Ben Affleck go to Ben Affleck's mom's house.
Yeah, mommy calls. So we talked about it. They're driving around town. They're getting lunch. She's holding up boys. Affleck is getting just excited to be with her. Yeah. Mommy calls. So fun. And they show up at his mom's house.
They show up at his mom's house, and in this scene, the mom is instantly in love with J-Lo, and J-Lo and the mom have this really quick conversation where they both basically say, yeah, we've had experiences with women, and that's fine. Doesn't, either it means you like women, or maybe you don't, or maybe you do right now. And Ben Affleck, I mean, you could just see the steam coming out of his ears, like he's trying to process this information. He's like, what? What are you saying?
He says what, like, so many times in this scene.
He's like, so confused.
What? I was nervous. Like, this could have been a scene where mom's like, as soon as mom finds out she's gay, mom could have flipped and went, oh, and, like, walked away and been kind of pissed at her.
Yeah.
Mom completely just goes, oh, great. Yeah.
Again, what a breath of fresh.
Sometimes men are lacking, with a wink wink to J-Lo.
Oh, so fun.
So nice. And she's like, I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always your mother. Oh. Gigli.
Right.
And, like, J-Lo's like, I like her. And I'm like, I like her.
Right. So
fun.
Again, and all these fun scenes come right before the hour 45 mark where things really take a turn. But up until this point, I think everyone's having a really good time.
It's a fancy-free, fun drive around town. They got, like, I just loved it.
Right.
This is when the movie starts to get me. I mean, I do see it cheapen its message, which we've talked about, but it's so good. I'm trying to think. I wrote at this point in my notes, I really thought we were watching enough.
Did I put on the right movie? Let me make sure.
I wrote, absolutely none of these scenes further this plot, and I'm kind of excited about that.
Well, here's a great scene that doesn't further the plot. There is a scene, I would say about 30 minutes in, where they've kidnapped the boy. J-Lo's with him. They're in the apartment. She's, like, reading a book. She's moved in.
Yeah.
And
she's reading a lot.
Christopher Walken comes a knocking on the door.
Oh my God.
Playing an unhinged detective.
Okay, detective.
Well, okay, I think you're right to raise an eyebrow because what I think the
Who
movie...
is he?
Right. I think what the movie was suggesting is that, okay, Christopher Walken says he's a cop and he's there to investigate the disappearance of this boy, and he's just curious, you know, blah, blah, blah. But what the movie seems to be implying is that they don't believe that he's a cop and that he might be somebody else more sinister. Maybe.
I was very confused by Walken.
We never see him again. We never see Christopher Walken again. We get no context on who he is. Mm-hmm. But when I saw the scene, I was like, wow, okay, interesting. Like, I think what they're trying to tell us is that he's not who he says he is. And I was like, okay, don't forget this scene because he's definitely coming back.
That's right. I thought he's definitely coming back. We're going to see more of him. And it's Christopher Walken. Like, of course he's coming back.
He says something about a chicken pot pie. I didn't quite land.
He wants to go to Marie Callender's.
No. And this is every time I see him unhinged. And I was like, again, he only got that scene. So that is probably why. And then every time I see a Christopher Walken kind of one-off scene, I think we saw this in Four Christmases as well, I do end up thinking to myself, oh, I wonder if Angelina Jolie has seen this movie. Like, is there a world where Angelina Jolie also went to go see Gigli?
She was like, I'm curious about the buzz. Let's go check Gigli out.
What did Dad do here? So
you want to know oh my God, we used to talk about titles a lot. Okay. Yeah. The most like scandalous thing about this movie was the title at the time. I'll never forget 2003 when everyone was like, Gigli. What is Gigli?
Gigli. What is it? How do you say it?
What is that? What does it even mean? Like, I've solved a 20-year-old mystery yesterday by watching Gigli and getting that answer.
Right. Solved it sort of because
sort of.
They say it becomes a weird running joke for about the first 5 minutes of the movie and then it ends. But the joke is people don't know how to pronounce his name. Mm-hmm. And
the idea that it's like feminine if they're like, they call him Gigli?
I think so, because whenever he corrects people and he says, no, it's Gigli, like really, I think what they're trying to say is that this is a very feminine name.
That's what I thought. Wow, this movie's better than I thought.
It's really good.
It's a tight movie.
It's a really good movie. So
yeah.
But what was interesting about the name is that, again, they tee this up in the beginning where it's, okay, something's weird with the name. No one knows his name. They can't get it right. Gigli's not a real name. So what's going on here? But
it's just his name.
That's it. It's just his name.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I just was like expecting Gigli to be more of a thing, but it's just his name.
Just his name.
Yeah, but okay. The walk-in scene. Speaking, we said not furthering the plot. I was confused there because I'm like, okay, if the cops are on his tail, right? Isn't this the point in the movie where he's supposed to be like, nothing to see here, while Brian's in the next room going, hey, can I get some snacks? And Walken's like, who's that? Like, isn't that this point in the movie where we're supposed to have fun with he's hiding a hostage?
I think so, because as soon as...
But nothing happens.
As soon as Christopher Walken leaves, that's when their mini road trip begins.
Yeah.
Which seems to just be kind of a drive around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
They don't really go anywhere. They leave in the car, in a convertible, no less, where everyone can see
him. A kidnapped individual. I wrote so many times, is no one looking for this kid?
Right. And what was weird about the road trip of it all is that every night on the road trip, it seemed like they just went back to their apartment and slept there.
I was like, they're playing house.
And every day
it's mommy, daddy, and a kid.
Right. And then every day they would get in the car and just drive around as if they're going somewhere else. But then they would sleep at the apartment.
Go back home.
Now, here's where I was so confused about where we were. But there's only one set, which is Ben Affleck's apartment.
Yeah, they're there a lot.
Okay, so there's a moment in the movie where we're at Ben Affleck's apartment. Everything is going well. And then there's a knock, knock, knock on the door. And there is an angry woman at the door. And she is like, she's like, what are you doing here, to Ben Affleck? And I was like, well, it's his apartment. That's what he's doing here.
I know.
And she storms in as if she knows the layout of the apartment and demands...
She's been on set all morning, this actress.
Okay, but
she knows the layout.
They were playing the scene as if this was Jennifer Lopez's apartment. Because she says to Ben Affleck, what are you doing here? And he's like, what are you doing here? And
this plays into the beginning where we thought we'd just like find out who J-Lo is in this movie.
Right.
Nope.
Because
her ex-girlfriend.
At first, when we meet J-Lo, right, she says, I just moved in down the hall. And I
lie.
And I right, it's a lie. She doesn't actually live down the hall. So there's no reason why her ex-girlfriend, A, would have known that she's at this apartment, or B, would have any sense of the layout of the apartment.
It's a very open concept, I guess. It's very easy to spot.
Very open. The rooms just flow. And you're right. It's the ex-girlfriend who her character is so dynamic. She's crazy. That's her character.
Nuts. I love a crazy ex-girlfriend.
Nuts. She's a crazy ex-girlfriend. And
you're into men now?
Men? And she does a performance art in the kitchen where she takes a knife and gives herself a cut. Which was
where the movie tonally really shifted for me.
Tonally shifted. I was like, no, I don't.
I was like, we are playing in a world of danger. Didn't think so.
You're right. Well, actually, I think that's an important moment because what we haven't seen in the movie at all up until this point is violence.
No violence, no blood.
And the first violent scene that we get in the movie is the ex-girlfriend doing harm onto herself.
Cutting herself, yeah.
And it's weird because they're shocked to see it. And
I'm like, why are you shocked? You're a hitman.
Well, right. And I think that's sort of the funny thing is that as the audience, we're also shocked. But in a traditional mob movie, we probably would have had so much violence at this point that we wouldn't be shocked to see this scene. So in some ways, it's kind of interesting because at the same time, we find out that Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck have been tasked to cut off the hostage's thumb so that they can send it to the district attorney or whatever and
really
show
force his
them
hand there.
Right. Show them that not only do they have his brother, but they are doing mean things to him.
Yes.
So
mean. It's really wild. It's just like, you're right. At this point in a mob movie.
That scene just interesting now.
It's just interesting now.
It's interesting now. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I like it.
I want that on a shirt. It's just interesting now.
It's just interesting now.
It's just interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah, we are flip-flopping around, but I'm happy to. Because like we said, all of these little sequences are just mini shorts. So
and that's honestly how the film should have been served.
They should have jumbled it up more. They should have cut it up a little more.
Yeah.
Just
Wednesday,
be like
Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday.
Put a subtitle in the beginning. Put a card that just says the events of this movie took place over a 48-hour weekend.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
Then just give us timestamps and days and let us put it all together like Tarantino.
Yeah.
You know?
And then I think intersperse it with scenes of Christopher Walken doing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. But bring him back.
Bring him back. Please bring him back.
Yeah, more Lewis checking in on the phone, which we got. We got that throughout. Lewis was our point person.
That was helpful. And then I think what would have been really helpful is to see scenes of Jennifer Lopez maybe before this interaction.
Oh, would have been cool.
To see her... Because all that we hear about Jennifer Lopez in the movie is that she's a contractor. And, of course, I think we're supposed to read into that she's sort of like a hit person or a hired hand. So it could have been interesting where it kind of flash cut to her doing maybe something really violent to somebody.
Mob woman stuff.
Right. And then we could have compared it to Ben Affleck, who we already know that he won't harm a fly. So I think it would have been nice to see that when they get... So imagine this. They get the scene, they get the notice that they have to cut off the boy's thumb. Yeah. And then without either of the two characters speaking, we get a flashback to Jennifer Lopez like doing some like god awful torture to somebody. And then we get a flashback to Ben Affleck where he is like looking at a hammer and like looking at some guy's like finger, and he's like, ugh. And then we cut to it and they're just like, no.
That would be awesome. Just tiny, tiny, tiny little flashbacks.
Yeah.
You want to know what I just realized in your rewrite, which I loved?
Thank you.
The two of them, not once in this movie are they holding a gun in a mob movie. Right?
No.
They're not armed at
nice.
all. Refreshing.
No. So refreshing.
There's no guns in this mob movie. There's virtually no blood.
Well, there's one gun.
There's one gun at the end.
Yeah.
Which is shocking.
Right, because when the gun is discharged towards the end of the movie, it does startle you. Because you're right, we haven't seen any guns.
No guns, no blood.
When J-Lo also never like physically attacks anyone, but she does scare people, like those high school boys.
She just threatens them.
She just threatens them. And then even when they get in the car, Ben Affleck is like, wait, do you really know how to do that? And she looks at him. She's like, no.
I'm like, okay, I had this thought yesterday.
Okay.
By the end, I was like, are we going to find out that they're just actors in a movie and it's going to just go meta and it was going to be like this whole thing was a movie? Like, I just never once believed that in their real lives they are these mob bosses or like hit people. I always thought they're two people playing at it. Or I thought by the end he'd go, this is my first job. And she'd go, this is my first job. Like, I don't know why I thought that.
Well, okay.
But I thought that.
Okay, I think your first instinct is more interesting than the second because... I
agree, yeah. It's a more interesting take.
When the movie comes to an end, it weirdly ends on a movie set where they're filming some sort of Baywatch-inspired
some sort of music video.
So it's almost like they would have driven up to it and we would have seen the little clapper and it would have said, cut. And
that's a wrap on Gigli.
Yeah. Okay. That's like the ending of The Hills where they pull back and we find out they're on a set. Wow.
Oh, I just got chills.
Okay,
yeah, and then
what's Gigli spelled backwards?
J-Lo and Ben.
No.
Okay. ILG. No. J-Lo and Ben Affleck take off their costumes and walk off set hand in hand because we know they're a real life couple. That would have saved Gigli.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay.
That would have saved Gigli. Okay, so we've been on the crime plot line most of this time, which I'm excited about. But let's get on the feminine masculine plot line, okay? Okay. I watched it again this morning. J-Lo does this like yoga routine.
Right. One night she's doing her down dog.
She's doing a great flow. Her form is amazing. It's impeccable. Her muscles.
She's doing it great, and I texted you about this morning, but I've really been working on my pigeon pose too, and she does one in the movie as well, much better than me. Her hips are parallel. One of mine is always up.
Up a little, a little tilted. Yeah,
that's right.
This movie has inspired me to start yoga like a little bit more hardcore. Like I'm actually going to do it every day now.
Right, and I've been telling you, I just recently got into yoga.
Yeah.
Just found it. So
I just found this new thing called yoga.
Yoga.
This movie has really ignited my passion for yoga, for sure. She's so good.
She's really good at yoga, and again, this is one of those moments where it turns.
She's teasing him. It's a real turning point in the movie.
Right, she's teasing him sexually, but there's also a turn on the convention where we've seen no violence in the movie, and instead we have our main character, our hired hit person, doing mindful meditation and yoga. What she's not doing,
individual.
Like
not target practice.
Right. We don't get that classic scene where they go to the shooting range and Ben Affleck misses the mark every time and J-Lo nails it perfectly. She nails it.
Bullseye each time.
We don't get that scene.
Nope. This is the bullseye.
This is the bullseye.
And it's like intellectual word bullseyes. She's like ping, ping, ping.
Right. And I think that's one of the risks that the movie took. And I think that I would like to give them a little bit of credit here, which is that the dialogue is quite silly in some of the scenes.
So silly.
Because you have the characters talking in what I can only imagine they thought was elevated speak. Yeah. They're trying to make them
this was like funny zingers too.
Funny zingers. They're talking in very bloated sentences. They're talking in paragraphs almost.
Yes.
And again, it's interspersed with these scenes of Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, but mostly Jennifer Lopez reading complex texts. And I think they're trying to suggest that these two are pretty smart. If not both of them, J-Lo is for sure smart.
She's smart. because he gives this like misogynistic thing about how being like gay means that she's always going to be missing something, and that's him and his.
It's him, by the way.
Him and his you know what.
Right.
Below the belt fam.
Right. And
for Steven, I'm going to censor myself for Steven. She claps back at him while doing yoga with, hey, here's why you're wrong, buddy. And then she goes on this like a kind of, imagine I do this monologue for like acting class.
Yeah. Why don't
she does this like whole, well, first of all, he says that you're missing me and you're missing my thing.
Right.
And she goes, well, you're entitled to your opinion. Which I thought was amazing.
That's your opinion.
I love, well, that's your opinion moment. And then she launches into why he's super wrong, why women are like kind of the end all be all, why they're everything. And she's like the hips, the legs. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll be honest. If you do write it out, it's confusing.
Word salad.
It is word salad. But it's like a kind of fun little teasy dance that I'd argue is completely elevated by the music. The music makes me feel like, oh, this is movie dialogue.
You're right. It is word salad, but I will at least give them a little bit of credit for trying something new.
Something new, and it's kind of ends up sexy. It ends sexy.
Yeah, because what they're doing is they're not tickling each other's bodies; they're tickling each other's minds, and that's nice.
And that's my favorite way to be tickled.
It's a thinking
it's
person's.
The only way.
It's a thinking person's movie.
Is this a movie for geniuses?
I think it is. I think it's first of all, it's a movie for everyone, and second of all, it's
just
a movie
not the
for
gays.
Geniuses.
Or maybe it is a movie for the gays.
I think. Listen,
the gay men get J-Lo, and the gay women get J-Lo.
I think.
Win-win.
I think there's a way to watch this movie and be so turned off by it and so offended. And I think if that is your read on the movie, you are entitled to that, and that's the beginning, middle, and end of your story.
And it's not, you're not even really off base.
Yeah, but I would also encourage you to rethink it and just allow it to wash over you again.
Yeah, because unfortunately, they do sleep together. Unfortunately. They kind of betray the whole thing that they're building. And she does say turkey time at one point.
It's turkey time. Gobble,
and they
gobble.
do make love.
Right.
And 2003 Reed, he's just turned a gay girl. Right. 2022 Reed, this bisexual goddess.
It's her choice. Is
doing whatever the F she wants. Yeah. And I kind of love that in order to finally sleep with him, she has to emasculate him to the point of being a woman in her eyes. The whole movie she spends just making him the cow.
Right.
He's like, there's a cow in a bowl, and right now I'm the bull. And she's like, no, you're the cow. And she squeezes his nipple.
And even after they're done their actions,
like a cow,
he does say, I'm the cow. And it's... Yes. So on the one hand, you're right. They've totally betrayed the whole movie by doing this. But on the other hand, again, I can at least appreciate that they're trying to do something new here, and that they're not just giving us a by the books third act, our leads are coming together romance scene. At least it feels somewhat different. Now, the only caveat with that is that the movie just would have been so much more interesting if they just remained friends. Yeah. You can really feel studio pressure or whatever, pressure from the man. You could just really feel that they're like, the audience wants to see these two together on screen, and they want to see a sexy scene between the two, so we have to give it to them. And it felt like out of obligation, they gave it to us. And the words exchanged to get us there are truly wild. Like, she's kind of accusing him of being gay himself the whole movie, just to get him to come to her level or something. It's weird. Right. It's, yeah. And again, they're doing a dance, and it's not a perfect dance.
It's not perfect. It's
not perfect. Don't come to Gigli if you're looking for perfection.
No.
Come to Gigli if you're looking for an idea that's still being workshopped. That's fair. And it needs your help to fill in some of the corners that it didn't quite color in on its own.
I love that take on this. That was amazing. Okay.
So
after the masculine feminine like plot line, the crime plot line is they still don't want to cut off the thumb. Mm-mm. But J-Lo has like this amazing idea.
Great idea, by the way.
So I thought in the moment, I thought, great idea. At the end, I was like, that was so stupid. Actually, in the moment, I thought it was so stupid because he uses a plastic knife. But anyway, it's her idea that they're going to go to the morgue and get a thumb because they don't want to cut poor Brian's little thumb off.
They don't want to. And I agree with you that when you're watching this scene and they go to the morgue and they don't say it, but they're getting, but we
know what's going to happen.
I did think, wow, that's actually really smart. And then
good loophole.
Then when we meet Al Pacino and find out the ramifications of that, I go, oh my God, that was so stupid.
So dumb.
So it's one of those movies or one of those scenes where you also start to realize again that these two actually have no business being
in this industry
in organized crime. But you're right. No. They go to the morgue. J-Lo wears a revealing top and she spills coffee on the guard. And
so Affleck can get in.
Right.
In his bowling shirt.
Yeah, he's dressed. He loves a loud print in the movie.
He's wearing bowling shirts the whole movie.
Right. And they go in and they find a McDonald's takeout bag.
Yeah.
And they get a plastic knife. And I guess he cuts the thumb off while...
I did wonder if that was possible. Do you think so?
No way.
No way.
There's bones in your hands. There's no way.
Maybe he just
unless you
snapped it.
Yeah, that's what I think.
He saw the skin and snapped.
Because he
does. And Brian's with him the whole time, worth mentioning. He's like, turn around.
Brian is standing there, and he, instead of bringing a timer to get it done quickly, Brian is going to sing Baby Got Back, and then Affleck has to finish sawing off the thumb before
he's up.
Before he's done with the song.
4 songs up.
Which is funny, though, because the room where so J-Lo just distracted the guard at the front. And then they run into the room that's literally next door. And then when they're in there, instead of remaining quiet, they're going to sing
a song.
There's no way that you couldn't hear the song in the lobby outside. So
now if they're hit people, kill the guard.
So
he's dead. Then go in there and sing Baby Got Back.
Kill the guard and
use a silencer.
Take his thumb. Like take anyone's thumb. So
it's so funny.
And then what's really funny, I don't know why this scene was so compelling, but the next scene they go to
the
Federal
UPS.
Express.
FedEx.
And
the scene was insane.
The scene was insane because talk about dialogue that didn't need to be in the movie. They have a very serious discussion, not even, but just a moment where the lady goes, "What size envelope do you need?" And then it's
standard, the small one, the top.
Just a small one.
And then J-Lo goes, the 3x6.
Yeah, it's very weird the way that the scene is performed because it's not done with a sense of humor. Like, oh my God, we have a thumb.
They took it really seriously.
They're very much just like looking at the options and be like, no, I think the 3x6 will work. Can we get that one, please?
It felt very bizarre, that scene.
It was like, such a weird tone to it because
I didn't know how to feel about it. I was like, are they trying to say J-Lo's like the smarts behind the operation still? Because as he's a bumbling idiot, she goes, the 3x6. She's calm.
I think that's the only, yes. I think that is what the scene is trying to convey.
And I couldn't believe they brought the thumb with them. Like I thought they were going to go do it in the car or something.
Right.
But he just turns around.
They're going to stuff the envelope there.
Stuffs the envelope and then licks it closed.
So gross.
Licks it closed.
J-Lo,
I'm like, your DNA is all over that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Sends it
really
by Federal
don't know
Express.
what they're doing. Now, and J-Lo has a little flirtation with the shopkeeper because they are looking at each other. which angers Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Because now we're in the world where they're not going to be friends. They are going to be lovers. So he looks at her like competition.
He says some pretty offensive things. I feel like it would be a disservice to the lesbian community if we didn't say, like, J-Lo should have had a stronger reaction in the car when he's calling her the D word.
Sure.
A lot. Like, many times. He says it so many times back to back, and there's a lot of problematic language in this movie.
So much.
But, like, if, poor little Brian can't defend himself because he is intellectually handicapped, J-Lo should have been like, don't call me that.
Right. I agree.
I was waiting for that in this movie.
There's a lot of harmful language that comes out of Ben Affleck's mouth. And the only way that I understood that scene is that when he's calling her all these offensive words, what I took away from the scene is, and the way that Jennifer Lopez played it, I wonder what she'd have to say about this. But I got the sense that she was thinking that he was projecting in this scene, and that he was really voicing his own insecurities about his own sexuality. So that is the reason why I don't think that she got terribly offended here, because it seemed like it was almost reaffirming what she already believed about him.
She's like, I'm going to let you talk into this one. Like, I'm just going to let you dig yourself into it. Exactly. This is why in the opening I said J-Lo understood what she was doing in this movie, and she got all of the subtext.
Oh, for sure.
There might have been a couple missteps. Maybe the director used a take or two where he shouldn't have, or whatever. J-Lo knew the subtext and knew what she had to do.
Right. And I think it actually helped create this tone where we didn't have either of these characters. Well, Ben Affleck does it a lot in terms of yelling at other characters, but we didn't get scenes where the two of them are screaming at each other back and forth. I know.
There's no like big old fight, really.
So in some ways, she's actually really modeling some really, really positive like conflict resolution that I can only imagine that she got from The Art of War. So
she's like behaving in a very evolved manner too. It's very like therapy relationship. Like she's very much like, I'm just gonna let you talk this one out, buddy.
Right. That's what I really thought she was doing in the scene. But I agree with you that when you watch it, there is this sense of, wow, we're really just gonna let Ben Affleck say whatever he wants to anyone.
I wrote at that point, what is the message of this movie?
What is the message? And that's a great question. I think there's many messages. And I think that what becomes hard about trying to get a message from the movie is we needed more. We needed more characters.
2 more hours.
We needed 2 more hours.
2 more hours.
Right. We needed more, because I think it would have helped create a little more of a fleshed out landscape here of where these characters were operating.
I'm obsessed with this movie. So whatever, she needs to emasculate him in order to sleep with him. We do that. Blah, 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 thumb, da-da-da. I think there's only one place to go, and it's like the end.
Right. So at a certain point, after all these various vignettes, the guy who is Ben Affleck's boss in the organized crime ring calls him up and says, the two of you, J-Lo and Ben Affleck, need to come to this meeting now. So they go to the meeting, and the guy is there, and so is Al Pacino.
Yeah, didn't recognize it was Al Pacino.
Okay, I did. But
okay, good for you. Points for you in the column.
He's doing an incredible performance in the movie.
He's acting in the mob movie, not
and
the romantic comedy.
Agreed. And that's why I think that his performance was so good in this, is because this movie rockets us into what the movie should have been. And when I say should have been, I don't mean what I wanted it to be, but what the conventional movie would have been.
Yeah, what they started with.
Because his behavior, he's so erratic, he's so angry, he's screaming, he has a gun, and you're almost looking at him. It was so scary. You're looking at him like, buddy, calm down.
I'm like, it's not a big deal. No one got hurt.
Right. Everyone's fine. But I think that if it would have been a movie littered with those kinds of scenes, we would have gotten to that scene and been like, oh my gosh, he's so badass and he's so cool. But when you watch it through this movie and you get to him, you're just like, calm down.
I'm like, you're overreacting, buddy. But okay, it does kind of like it takes the main plot and just takes all the air out of it. Because he's just like, this whole time you guys thought this would work, and it clearly didn't work, and you're stupid.
Not just that, but he also says to them, I didn't ask you to do this. No one asked you to do this.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It takes all the wind out of the movie, because suddenly...
It's like, why did we just have 2 hours of this?
The whole kidnapping plot is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And
it's like, give him back.
And Jennifer Lopez being there is irrelevant. She didn't need to be there.
She didn't even need to be there. She didn't need to babysit him because it didn't need to happen.
Right. And then as soon as he explains that, and we all go, he shoots Lewis.
Shocked beyond belief.
Right.
Was so psyched that we got like 1 or 2 reaction shots of J-Lo and Ben just being like, just like mouth agape. But I do think they could have taken it more seriously.
This would have been a funny... Okay, this would have been a really...
dead body.
This is a dead body. And this would have been a really funny scene because what I think they're trying to do is they're trying to draw a distinction here where Ben Affleck is frozen in fear and J-Lo is going to talk us out of it, of the situation. And I think they could have pushed it a little bit funnier if... I think that shooting him is fine. That should have happened. And then we see the difference in the way that they react to it. Yeah. So I think J-Lo should have stayed stoic like she did.
And then he should have flipped.
Yes, he should have been like, ah!
Yeah, he should have
like
screamed.
Screaming and like, and like,
oh my God. Yeah, hyperventilating on all fours.
Exactly.
It would have been the tone of what we've been building.
Right. It would have matched the tone. And you could have just gotten a scene where she's looking at him like, what are you doing?
Get your shit together. Because she's like a job now to talk. She's to talk for their lives.
She has to talk for their lives,
like,
and she knows she has to do it on her own.
They are about to die, is how I felt. And I'm like,
oh, for sure.
She's to talk her way out of this one. And I've never felt any danger in this movie up until minute 1 hour 50.
Right.
No danger.
I mean, he shoots Lewis first, and then it appears like he's going to give another monologue and then shoot
the others,
Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck.
Yeah, and somehow
and
she
I understood his
I
understood his frustration.
Yeah, I'm like, I have no choice now. You guys are dumb.
And this was actually interesting because I think that what Al Pacino says here is information that if you watch mob movies, I think that you would have understood where he was coming from. Because he says to them, the one thing you don't ever do is you don't shake down the government. That doesn't work. It's almost like what he was saying is, if you would have watched one movie, you would have known that you don't do this. You don't ever shake down the government. What you do is you buy them off. Like, you appease to them. You don't use the violence that we do on the government.
Yeah. Wow, another tally for like the meta nature of this all. Like, I just wanted them to just be like, this is a movie. This is a movie that follows no conventions of a mob movie.
And having Al Pacino there too, it's almost as if he stepped off the set of something else and came on here just to tell them what to do.
How to make a mob movie. It's a real wink, wink, nod, nod to mob movies.
Right. How to make a mob movie. And when you watch the scene, I think that you walk away from it with two different appreciations. Number one, you hear what Al Pacino says, and at least I did. I thought to myself, he's right. These two are dum-dums. And so is Lewis, by the way. He's a dum-dum-dum. Yeah. But I also believe what Jennifer Lopez said, which was, okay, we can also make this go away in a way where everybody will be fine.
And I was like, can they? Just give him back?
Well, that's what I thought. I was like, okay, what are we going to do with him?
Like, they're about to get arrested for kidnapping.
Right. So
I was a little confused because she's convinced Al Pacino, who's the scariest person in this whole movie, who could kill them in one instant. She's convinced him to let them go. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Right.
But we've got to tie up the buddy movie of it all. We've got to tie up the buddy comedy.
Right. Right. And what she does say to him is, listen, give us whatever X number of days, hours to take care of it. Yeah. And then we'll have another meeting in a week.
If you don't like it.
If you don't like it. Yeah.
And then the implication is they're going to skip town.
I think so. But it's called managing up. It's when you manage your manager and you give them a choice, and it still empowers them to make a choice, even though you've set out the options for them. Yeah. So you're right, though.
Mr. Al Pacino takes the bait. He's like, okay, good idea.
He takes the bait. And, well, you know what would have been really funny is if in one of the earlier scenes, she was reading a book called How to Manage Your Manager. That would have been a really funny.
The whole movie, she should have been reading that. That actually would have been so funny.
Or How to Win Friends and Influence People. So
yes, this movie just needed one more touch of self-awareness, and it would have been there. Just one touch like that. The movie, I would have taken the movie set, pan up, crane shot, rap on Gigli. I would have taken the book How to Manage Your Manager. I would have taken a wink to camera. I would have get Christopher Walken back in there for that ending scene.
Right.
Just something.
Something. And you're right, though. When they leave the meeting, it's very much implied that the two of them are going to run off into the sunset and leave town. And along the way, and the character that they kidnapped had been constantly saying, Baywatch, Baywatch.
I want to go to the Baywatch.
He wants to
go see the women on the beach. Yeah.
Right. He wants to have a relationship with women. And oddly enough, there's a shooting of a movie.
A beachy music video.
Music
right off
video.
the Pacific Coast Highway.
There is music. So
they're going to dance.
What's really funny is that Ben Affleck, and I think this is supposed to show us that he's grown a lot, but Ben Affleck doesn't want to stop to let him out. He wants to keep him for a while. And J-Lo's the one who says, we need to pull over. And
yeah, well, he wants to take him right back to the home that he came from.
Right.
They passed the Baywatch,
Another
and J-Lo's like, you gotta pull over. This is the point too where I'm like, this script has no business being this, I'm gonna say air quotes, good, because it does go, remember when we dropped all those things in Act 1? Time to tie him up. So Act 1, I want to go to the Baywatch. You're supposed to scream with happiness that this character is finally going to the Baywatch.
This scene is underscored with what could only be described as a score that you would find towards the end of Under the Tuscan Sun.
That
it's
kind of
this
uplifting.
Swelling music where
it's really
it's
swelling.
Almost like they want you to cry.
They want you to cry. He made it to the Baywatch.
They make it there, and Ben Affleck gives him some advice and says...
Yeah, like, you're not... No one's out of your league. Like, he's basically saying, any woman you like, you go up to her and you make small talk.
Yeah.
And you say, how about the weather we're having?
That's right.
And the whole movie, Brian had been calling this sort of Australian weather hotline to hear the woman on the other end speak in an Australian accent.
Right.
And he formed some sort of bond with her. And like you said, swelling music. They want you to cry. He's on the set of The Baywatch.
Right.
Director is like, time to partner up. A real pretty lady in a hot pink suit.
You don't need to marry her. You don't need to marry her. You just gotta dance with her for 10 minutes.
And Brian makes small talk with her, and she opens her mouth, and she's got an Australian accent.
She's an Australian accent, and she's so nice. She's so nice. And they dance, and as they're dancing and Brian gets more and more comfortable, we just see Ben Affleck standing on the bluff,
looking on at his like protege,
proud father.
His son
who he kidnapped. So
I'm like, they're making the case that like Brian should stay with him. This is like Big Daddy.
Oh yes, exactly.
Big Daddy.
Well, that's sort of what the energy is before Ben Affleck releases him onto the beach. There's very much a will they, won't they energy.
Yeah. Will they keep him? Can they keep him, Ma?
Well, almost right. But almost before that scene, there's sort of this notion that the three of them are just going to drive off in the sunset together.
Yeah, the playing house of it all is going to continue.
Right. But he leaves, and Ben Affleck calls the brother to come pick him up.
Yeah, he's like, your brother's at the beach. I could only imagine. That's what he said.
Yeah. And he slams the phone down.
Makes no sense.
He gives Jennifer Lopez the car.
He's like, I want you to have it.
Yeah.
And this is where I liked she kind of went back to, hey, I don't really think you fit into my life. Which I was like, yeah, good.
Right.
Don't let them end up together at the end of this. And he gives the keys away, kind of giving up his like machismo macho guy thing, his like convertible.
Yeah. Right.
But they undercut it all.
Yeah.
When she comes back for him.
They do undercut it all when she comes back. She drives back and she picks him up.
She's like, get in.
Get in, and away they go.
They drive off.
Sort of implying that there is an opportunity for potential romance down the road.
I'm just like, they're runaways now. Like,
they're runaways, but this scene would have been so much better if they were running away together almost in a Thelma and Louise style.
That's what I was thinking.
And I just think it's so much more interesting if the two of them run away, not with the intention of hopefully falling in love, but just with the intention of being in each other's lives as friends. I just think that would have been so much more interesting.
Imagine I do imagine an alternate reality where they did Thelma and Louise it, and the brother shows up to get his younger brother. The DA shows up to get his brother. He's got the cops with him, because why wouldn't he have the cops with him? Because they stole his brother.
Right.
And the cops are like on their tail, and she circles back, and he hops in, and they ride off together, either into the sunset for us to like we get to decipher if they get caught or not, or they drive off of a cliff.
Right. I mean, there were cliffs abound, so they could have driven off a cliff.
So many missed opportunities. Like, oh. Wow.
Yeah, or even accidentally driven off a cliff. That would have been funnier.
Yes.
And that's how the movie ends.
I have to say, I love our rewrites. I don't think a lot of the issues are even the director's fault. It seems like his hands were tied by
you could
the hubbub of it all.
Like each scene was shot on a different day, which I know is how movies work. But it was as if each day there was almost a new set of instructions as to what the tone, movie was going to be, because again, you hit around the hour 45, it's a totally different movie than what we got when J-Lo comes into his apartment for the first time.
I think you can like see points where it's draft 1, and then you can see other points where it's like draft whatever, like 60. Right. But like you can just see that they didn't elevate draft 1. The draft 1 elements didn't get elevated.
It wasn't a whole script rewrite.
It
was
later.
Just section by section.
Yeah, which is tough when you got a studio breathing down your neck, and Ben and J-Lo are in your movie, which I really kind of loved seeing them.
Yeah, it was.
Kiss.
They have an interesting. They certainly have an interesting dynamic to them, and as we said, sort of at the beginning, it's not the worst movie of all time, but I think the fact that it's the two of them together, it makes it so much more of a fun, easy target for it to be the worst movie of all time. And no one would have ever talked about this movie. I mean, terrible movies are released every year. I think the fact that the two of them were at the height of their early 2000s fame and they did this, it just makes it all the more interesting that they turned out this movie. And I would encourage people to either rewatch it or watch it for the first time.
Watch it for the first time. I'm curious.
And
I want to hear from you.
Watch it with an open mind and an open heart, and I think you could really have a good time.
Open mind, open heart.
Open mind, open heart, and a willing to acknowledge that there are so many disgusting sentences said in the movie.
I know, and like we've tackled this before on the pod. Like we've danced around this before. Yeah, and it helps me so much to just say, this is what happened. Like, this is what was committed to film. Like, my hands are tied. I can only watch what I've been given.
Right.
Oh, man. Gigli. I have to say, pretty shocking. Maybe this is like white privilege, or I don't know. This movie doesn't seem to stick to either of them. Like, they're fine. Affleck went on to win more Oscars. J-Lo went on to star in better movies.
Yeah. I think if anything, what it did was it became more of a public persona that these two, I think the idea that was floated around then that I heard was these two are overpaid, they have no talent, and they're just celebrities. And
that would support that. This movie would support that thesis.
Yeah, I think that was the takeaway is, can you believe they got $12 million to be in the worst movie of all time? Yeah. I think when you phrase it like that, I don't think it sounds that good. But I think if you say, wow, they earned $12 million playing a really interesting look at mob culture, and it happened to not perform well at the box office, is a different sentence.
Yeah, I'm reading a little bit of reviews and I'm dying. The most thoroughly joyless and inept film of the year. One of the worst of the decade.
No.
I think if anything, I think this movie's embarrassing for the two of them. I think she's embarrassed. I think he's embarrassed.
Yeah.
I think if I were in it, I'd be embarrassed, and I really would want to bury it. And it just sucks that you said, like, they're at the height of their careers in 2003, and like you can't bury it. There's no way you're burying this movie. It's here forever.
Right. And I think like also I don't want to like overstate that it's some brilliant work of art. I mean, look at all the work we had to do to workshop it. You shouldn't need that much work.
Jumping through hoops is the phrase I would use.
I would just say it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Definitely
not. And for
not.
that, I am happy.
Definitely not. And I enjoyed our re-rates. I ended up enjoying some of this ride. And I almost worry that we've made too good of a case for it. Like, I have to say that.
I mean, sure. But
I have to say that to like protect my own ass. I'm like, did I make too good of a case for Gigli?
Right. Like I said, it's not an AFI top 100, but I think that it's not as bad as everyone made it out to be. And I think that the bones there could have been so much stronger. And that's all.
As evidenced by our rewrites.
That's right.
Oh, Gigli, man. Okay, I really am curious if you guys watch this for the first time. So write that in your review. We've been light on reviews, and I'm kind of getting mad. I'm
like
getting
Al Pacino mad.
I'm like getting Al Pacino level mad, and I don't want to threaten you, but.
And we know you're listening, so please, please, please rate, review, subscribe, watch us on YouTube if you want to see our facial reactions to what we're saying. You want to put face to text. That's always available for you. And
highly recommend.
Yeah, I would say that I'm happy that we did another in the J-Lo canon. I'm glad that we did it, and I'm glad that we have it in our belt now as we watch other J-Lo movies in the near to late future. And we can reference this now.
I'm beyond psyched to have, like, J-Lo is such a gift, not only to this pod, but to this world.
Right.
I'm so happy to have her back. And we will be revisiting J-Lo.
We will be. Anyway.
The timeless beauty that is J-Lo.
That's right. Well.
Okay. I think we did the damn thing.
That's that on that. And thank you to everyone. Thank you, J-Lo. I guess thank you, Ben Affleck. Wash your mouth out with soap, mister, after this movie.
Go talk to your mother.
Go talk to your mom. Anyway. Bye.
Bye, Steven.
Bye, Chanel.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.